My dad abandoned me at 16 and said, "Figure it out yourself." Then his 22 years old wife texted me this at 3 a.m. Pause with me for just a moment, subscribe to support this channel. And in the comments, share where you're watching from, so we can celebrate our global community. My name is Jasmine Carter and I'm 24 years old. 8 years ago, my father walked out on me in the coldest way imaginable, and I thought I'd never hear from him again. I was wrong. Dead wrong. At 3 in the morning last Tuesday, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. The message read, "Your father is dying. He's asking for you. Please come. Brittany." Brittany. His 22-year-old wife who's literally 2 years younger than me. My hand started shaking as I stared at those words, and suddenly I was 16 again, standing in our apartment doorway watching my dad stuff clothes into a duffel bag. "Where are you going?" I'd asked, my voice small and scared. He didn't even look at me. "I'm done playing house, Jasmine. Your mama's gone, and I can't do this anymore." My mother had died 6 months earlier from cancer, and I was still drowning in grief. "But Dad, what about me? Where am I supposed to go?" He finally turned around, and the look in his eyes was pure ice. "You're 16. Figure it out yourself." I did. Then he walked out, and I haven't seen him since. Not at my high school graduation. Not when I aged out of foster care. Not once in 8 years. Now this stranger, this girl who wasn't even old enough to drink when she married my father, was telling me he wanted to see me. My roommate Kenya walked into the kitchen and saw my face. "Jazz? Girl, what's wrong?" I showed Kenya the text, watching her eyes widen as she read it. "Are you serious right now? After everything?" She grabbed my phone like she wanted to throw it across the room. "Jazz, this man left you with nothing. Do you remember what happened after he left?" I remembered. God, I remembered every painful detail. After my dad abandoned me, I stayed in our apartment for 3 days, surviving on ramen and denial. When the landlord came for rent I couldn't pay, he called social services. I was placed with the Stewarts, a foster family who already had 4 other kids. Mrs. Stewart was kind but overwhelmed. Mr. Stewart looked at us like we were paychecks with mouths to feed. I worked 2 jobs my entire junior and senior year, saving every penny I could. I slept on a bunk bed with a girl named Tasha who cried herself to sleep every night missing her own mom. "I know what you're thinking," Kenya said, sitting beside me at our tiny kitchen table. "You're thinking maybe he's changed. Maybe he's sorry. But Jazz, people like that don't change. They just get old and scared." I looked at the text again. My finger hovered over the reply button. What if he's actually dying though? What if this is my last chance to get answers? To ask him why? Kenya squeezed my hand. "Then you go get your closure. But babe, you better armor up first. Because men like your father, they'll break your heart twice if you let them." I texted back at 6 in the morning after 3 hours of restless sleep. "Where is he?" The response came within minutes. "County General Hospital. Room 407. Thank you so much for coming. He talks about you all the time." That last sentence made me want to throw up. He talks about me all the time. To who? Certainly not to me during the past 8 years of absolute silence. Not when I was sleeping in a foster home. Not when I was working overnight shifts at a gas station to pay for community college. Not when I finally got my associate's degree and nobody from my real family was there to see it. Kenya offered to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. The drive to County General took 40 minutes, and every mile felt like driving backward through my own trauma. I kept having flashes of memories. My dad teaching me to ride a bike when I was 7, running beside me and promising he wouldn't let go. My dad at my 8th grade graduation, beaming with pride. My dad at my mother's funeral, completely shutting down, his face a mask of stone. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and sadness. I found room 407 and stood outside the door for a full 5 minutes, trying to breathe. A nurse walked by and smiled sympathetically. "You here to see Mr. Carter? He'll be so happy. He's been asking for his daughter all week." All week. He'd been asking for me all week but hadn't bothered to reach out himself. He'd sent his child bride to do it. I pushed open the door, and there he was. Eric Carter, my father, looking 20 years older than the last time I'd seen him. He was hooked up to machines, his face gaunt and gray. But his eyes were the same. Those brown eyes that used to look at me with love but had turned so cold the day he left. "Jasmine." His voice cracked. "Baby girl, you came. Baby girl." He hadn't earned the right to call me that. "What's wrong with you?" I asked, staying by the door, keeping my distance. He coughed, and I could hear the fluid in his lungs. "Stage 4 lung cancer. Spread to my liver. They're saying weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky." A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "Lucky? That's interesting." He flinched at my tone. "I know you're angry. I know I got a lot to answer for. But I need to explain some things before I go. Need you to understand." "Understand what exactly?" I stepped closer, my hands balling into fists. "Help me understand how you walked out on your 16-year-old daughter right after her mother died. Help me understand how you slept at night knowing I was in foster care. Actually, where were you sleeping? Because clearly you were comfortable enough." His face darkened. "You don't know nothing about what I was going through. Losing your mama broke something in me. Every time I looked at you, I saw her. It hurt too much to stay." The audacity of that statement hit me like a physical blow. It hurt too much to stay. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I was hurting too. I lost my mother and then my father in the same year. I was a child, and you were the adult. You were supposed to protect me. A woman appeared in the doorway then, and I knew immediately it was Brittany. She was petite, with long braids and nervous energy radiating off her. "Jasmine." "Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm so glad you're here." She moved to my father's bedside, placing a protective hand on his shoulder. The gesture made me sick. "How old are you exactly?" I asked her directly. 22. 23 next month." She said it with a hint of defensiveness. "And you met my father how?" My dad tried to interrupt, but I cut him off with a look. Brittany glanced between us uncomfortably. "We met at the restaurant where I was waitressing. About 3 years ago. He used to come in every morning for coffee. 3 years ago. That would make her 19 and him 48 when they met." The math made my skin crawl. "So you were married when?" "Last year." 2 years ago, Brittany said quietly. "Right after I turned 21. "That's beautiful," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Real fairy tale stuff. Did he tell you he had a daughter he abandoned? Did that come up during your courtship, or did he conveniently forget to mention that detail?" "Jasmine, that's not fair," my father wheezed. "Brittany don't have nothing to do with what happened between us." "No, she doesn't," I agreed. "But she's here playing concerned stepmother, and I'm curious what version of Eric Carter she thinks she married. Did he tell you he left his teenage daughter with nothing? Did he mention he never paid a dime of child support, never called, never checked if I was even alive?" Brittany's face paled. She looked at my father with confusion and hurt. "Eric, you said she ran away. You said you tried to find her but she didn't want to be found." The lie hung in the air like poison gas. I actually laughed, a sound with no humor in it whatsoever. I ran away. That's the story you went with? I was 16 years old. Where exactly was I supposed to run to? My father couldn't meet my eyes. I looked for you at first. The stewards wouldn't tell me where you went after you aged out. Because I filed paperwork making sure you couldn't find me. I shouted. I didn't want a father who would show up 8 years later pretending he cared. You want to know where I went? I got a studio apartment with 2 other girls. I worked full-time at Target while taking night classes. I ate cereal for dinner most nights because that's all I could afford. I cried myself to sleep for 2 years straight wondering what I did wrong to make my own father hate me. I never hated you, he said weakly. I loved you too much. That was the problem. That's not love. My voice broke. Love doesn't abandon. Love doesn't choose convenience over responsibility. Brittany was crying now, which somehow made me the bad guy in the room. I think maybe we should all take a breath, she said, her voice shaking. Eric needs to rest, and this stress isn't good for him. Oh, now we're worried about stress. I turned on her, knowing I was being harsh but unable to stop myself. Tell me something, Brittany. What exactly do you get out of this marriage? A man 30 years older than you who clearly has a history of abandoning people when things get hard. What's your angle? I love him, she said simply, wiping her tears. He was kind to me when nobody else was. My family kicked me out when I was 19. I was homeless, living in my car. Eric helped me get back on my feet. He gave me a place to stay, helped me get into community college. He was there for me. The parallel wasn't lost on me. So he saved you but couldn't save his own daughter. That's rich. My father started coughing violently then, his whole body shaking. Machines started beeping. Brittany rushed to press the call button, and within seconds a nurse was in the room, checking his vitals and adjusting his oxygen. You folks need to keep it calm in here, the nurse said sternly, looking directly at me. Mr. Carter's condition is very fragile. I stepped back, suddenly aware that I was the villain in this scene. The angry daughter upsetting her dying father. Nobody knew the full story. Nobody cared. I left the room, needing air, needing space. I made it to the parking lot before the tears came, hot and angry and 8 years overdue. I sat in my car and screamed until my throat was raw. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't have saved. This is Brittany. I saved your number from when you texted this morning. Can we talk? Just us. Please. There's stuff about your dad you need to know. Stuff he made me promise not to tell you. I stared at that message for a long time. Every instinct told me it was a trap, that getting more involved with this situation would only hurt me more. But the journalist in me, the part that needed the full story, couldn't resist. When and where? I texted back. There's a coffee shop across from the hospital. The Corner Brew. Can you meet me there in 20 minutes? I'll tell Eric I'm going to get dinner. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a booth at the Corner Brew, watching Brittany nervously stir sugar into her coffee. She looked younger in the fluorescent lighting, more like the girl she was than the wife she was trying to be. Thank you for meeting me, she started. I know you have every right to hate me. I don't hate you, I said honestly. I don't know you well enough to hate you. I hate what you represent. I hate that my father could be a father figure to you but not to his actual daughter. Brittany nodded, her eyes filling with tears again. He talks about you constantly, Brittany said quietly. Every night, especially when he's been drinking. He cries about what he did. Says he's a coward. Says walking out on you was the biggest mistake of his life. Then why didn't he come find me? Why didn't he apologize? Because he's ashamed. And honestly, Because I think he's terrified you'll reject him the way he rejected you. He doesn't think he deserves your forgiveness. She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. My father at a park, staring at young girls on swings with their fathers. My father drunk at their kitchen table, holding what I realized was my 8th grade school photo. He carries this picture everywhere, Brittany said. It's falling apart because he looks at it so much. I felt sick. So what? I'm supposed to feel sorry for him. He's had 8 years to reach out. 8 years to apologize. He didn't do it because it was too hard for him. No, Brittany said firmly. You're not supposed to feel sorry for him. You're supposed to know the truth. Jasmine, your father has a gambling problem. He's had it for years. The room tilted. What? After your mom died, he spiraled. Started going to casinos, betting on sports, poker games. He lost everything. Your college fund, the life insurance money your mom left, his retirement. Everything. That's why he couldn't keep the apartment. That's why he left. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. He gambled away my mother's life insurance. I could barely breathe. That money was supposed to be for me. For college. She made him promise. Brittany nodded miserably. He knows. He's been trying to make it right for years, but he kept gambling it away. He'd win a little, promise himself he'd give it to you, then lose it all trying to win more. It's been a cycle. How much are we talking about? Your mom's policy was $150,000. He went through it in 8 months. I thought I might throw up. $150,000. That could have paid for university. That could have given me stability, options, a future that didn't involve working myself to exhaustion. Does he still gamble? He stopped 2 years ago when we got married. I made it a condition. He goes to Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week. He's been clean since then, but the damage was done. We're drowning in debt. That's why we're at County General and not somewhere better. We don't have health insurance. I'm paying for his care with credit cards. Something occurred to me then. Is that why he wants to see me? Does he need money? Is this whole dying father act a setup? No. Brittany looked horrified. Jasmine, he's really dying. The doctors gave him maybe 6 weeks, probably less. He wants to see you because he's running out of time to make amends. And because. She hesitated. Because what? I demanded. Because there's a life insurance policy. Through his old job. It's worth $200,000, and you're still the beneficiary. The world stopped spinning. What did you just say? He never changed the beneficiary. It's an old policy from before your mom died. He kept paying the premiums even when we couldn't afford groceries. He said it was the least he could do, that you'd get something from him even if it was only after he was dead. Brittany pulled out a folder from her purse and slid it across the table. Here's all the documentation. The policy number, the company, everything. When he dies, you'll need to file a claim. I'm not supposed to tell you this. He made me promise to wait until after he was gone, but I thought you deserved to know now. I opened the folder with shaking hands. It was all there, official letterhead and legal documents. My name clearly listed as the sole beneficiary. $200,000. More than enough to make up for what he'd stolen from my mother's insurance. More than enough to pay off my student loans, buy a car that didn't break down every other week, maybe even put a down payment on a house. Why are you telling me this? I asked Brittany. What do you get out of it? She laughed bitterly. Nothing. Actually, I get to watch my husband's daughter inherit a fortune while I'm left with $60,000 in medical debt and a broken heart. But you know what? You deserve it more than I do. You were his child. You deserved better than what he gave you. For the first time since this nightmare started, I saw Brittany as a real person. Someone who'd also been hurt by my father's choices. He really never stopped talking about me? I asked quietly. Brittany nodded. Every single day. Sometimes he'd tell me stories about you as a kid. How you were obsessed with dinosaurs and made him take you to the Natural History Museum every weekend. How you won the science fair in 5th grade with a volcano project. How you looked exactly like your mama when you smiled. Those memories felt like they belonged to a different person, a different life. And you still married him. Knowing he abandoned his kid. I was young and stupid and desperate, Brittany admitted. I thought love could fix everything. I thought if I loved him enough, he'd stop hurting. But you can't fix someone who won't fix themselves. I know that now. What are you going to do after he dies? I asked. She shrugged, and the gesture was so defeated it broke my heart a little. Figure it out, I guess. Get a roommate. Pick up extra shifts. The same thing people like us always do. People like us. She was right. We were both casualties of Eric Carter's failures, just in different ways. The money from the life insurance, I said slowly. Half of it is rightfully yours. He was your husband. You took care of him when he was dying. Brittany's eyes widened. Jasmine, no. That's not why I told you about it. I don't want your money. It's not about what you want. It's about what's fair. You said you have $60,000 in medical debt. That's your half. I'll make sure of it. She started crying again, really sobbing this time. Why would you do that? I'm nothing to you. Because someone should break the cycle of people being terrible to each other, I said. And because you were honest with me when you didn't have to be. That means something. We sat in silence for a few minutes, two young women bound together by the same broken man. Finally, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Should I go back and talk to him? Before it's too late. Brittany wiped her eyes. I think you should do whatever feels right for you. If you need to tell him off, tell him off. If you need to forgive him, forgive him. If you need to walk away and never look back, do that. But whatever you choose, make sure it's for you, not for him. I went back to the hospital that night. My father was sleeping when I arrived, looking small and fragile in the hospital bed. I sat in the chair next to him and watched him breathe, each breath a struggle. When he finally opened his eyes and saw me there, he started crying. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry. I know, I said. And I did. I knew he was sorry. I knew he'd been broken by grief and addiction. I knew he'd made terrible choices that hurt me in ways that would take years to fully heal from. But I also knew that understanding why he did it didn't mean I had to forgive him. I'm not here to give you absolution, I told him. I'm here because I needed to see you one more time and know that I survived you. That I made it without you and I'm going to be okay. Better than okay. He nodded, accepting this. You're so much like your mama. So strong. She'd be so proud of the woman you've become. Yeah, I said. She would. No thanks to you. We talked for 2 more hours that night. I asked him questions, and he answered honestly for the first time in 8 years. It wasn't healing, not exactly. But it was closure. My father died 3 weeks later. At the funeral, Brittany and I stood side by side, 2 women who'd loved the same complicated man in different ways. When the life insurance money came through, I kept my promise and sent her half. She used it to go back to school and start over. As for me, I used my half to finish my bachelor's degree and start the therapy I desperately needed. I learned that surviving someone's abandonment doesn't mean you have to let it define you. I learned that closure isn't always pretty, but it's necessary. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply building a life so good that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. My name is Jasmine Carter, I'm 24 years old, and I'm finally free.